Okay, shall we start? What do you think? So you had rather fruitful previous talks, maybe almost all of you are tired. So my name is Dmitry, I say Dima, and I'm from Belarus, and I'm running a Java agile development company called Just Ting, and here I'm as a product owner of our product, and I would like to present this product to you, but also, so I promise there won't be lots of advertising, but I would like to highlight several things, like architectural things, ideas, and concept we applied in our product, so everyone from you could apply it on your projects. And first of all, I would ask you, do we have developers here, like guys who are doing some development or who is doing test automation? Can you please raise your hands? Okay, then I'm very happy that you're here. And do we have people from Belarus? Okay, no people from Belarus, but there are many of them here in the conference. So let's start. Just several words. I'm a professional Java developer, and I'm a Eclipse committer. Also, I'm running my own company, and I took all positions, like starting from junior. I was software engineer, senior software engineer, project coordinator, manager, and now run my own company. So I have some different experience, and in my practice, not almost everywhere, but very often, I was in between test automation teams or guys who are making some automation and between programmers teams. And this was kind of coordinating or management positions, and I was very involved into the processes behind team cooperation and team, I said about this our own product, and it's called XML2Selenium, Test Automation Platform. Later I will tell you why we call it not framework, not product, but a platform, and I will try to show why it has place. So agile Java development. We have one speaker who said, well, sometimes he hates Java. Do we have people here who hates Java at all? Yeah, okay, you know that. But actually, I will tell you. So I'm in the area of Java development already for 10 years, and actually, even when I started a company, we didn't choose direction. We didn't start doing some other things. We're still on Java, and we are like new areas appears like web development and NoSQL things, but Java still in the place, and it still has all emerging technologies implemented, and so we could use them. I would highlight that Java is a great thing for test automation, because like unit tests came from Java in some way. Also, Java is just ideal for test-driven development and data-driven testing. I believe in that. And another thing is Agile. So Agile and like it's kind of part of extreme programming promotes also test automation and continuous integration. And I believe that if you're doing some test automation, definitely you're doing some XP stuff, and also you're okay about continuous integration in your company. At least you need to understand what continuous integration process are. And in my company, we earn from providing some outsourcing services, and one part is just development, like creating something, but another part is test automation services. So on a daily basis, we apply our knowledge and get some experience from that. Also, in general, in my company, we are concentrated in, I would say, generalization programming, and I include here all object-oriented programming patterns, pluginable systems, and some complicated architectures like frameworks and so on, including, for example, Eclipse, which itself is pluginable software. So, and I'm saying this just to let you understand my motivation, why we decided to create something on the base of Selenium. So here in this talk, I won't concentrate on XML2Selenium, but I will concentrate on ideology behind it and about our motivation. And also I will try to show you different situations we came into our company company while we are working on our product. Okay, so this is the first look at XML2Selenium, and if we consider it in a very simple way, imagine two things. One thing is just XML files. You imagine just you have just files, and these files could be put into the folders. Folders could be put into other folders, and you have some hierarchical folders with some files, so it's clear. And you write these XMLs using some language. And for XML2Selenium, we have own language. And we believe this language makes it easier for people to write tests. Later I will show you examples. So we say that in order to write tests which cover some web UI, web applications, you don't need some programming knowledges, you don't need some OOP, you don't need to understand how compilation works and so on. So you could be just a student, or you could be even junior. And we also applied our concepts on manual testers. So we took a manual tester and asked, okay, please study our rather simple language and try to do something. And the person liked second week, and he started to do some automation. Okay, here it seems that we create some files, and then these files are running by our platform. And I would say that we use JUnit. Who knows about JUnit? Can you raise hands? Okay. We use JUnit, and we use JUnit as a running platform for XML2Selenium. So we extend JUnit and customize it, and thus XML2Selenium runs our XML tests, and we produced some reports. So we have one part is XML files. They could be just, I don't know, edited in any editor, in Notepad, in your Eclipse, everywhere. They are put to control-version system, and another part which runs them and provides some reporting. And reporting is the second part of our software we build. Here, just don't be afraid, it's just several examples, and they're not so complicated. So in a world of unit testing, you see, maybe you remember, you have a class, for example in Java, and in class you could have some methods, right? With annotations tests. So here, what we earlier, annotations test in Java, it's test element in our grammar. And test case itself, it's analog in Java, it's a class itself, containing several tests. There are some attributes like text, names, descriptions, and so on. And also there is some importing. That means we allow some usability, so you could create several things, put them to some XML, and then reuse them in your project. And it contains rather simple text, for example, navigate. So you just type navigate, you're typing where to navigate, and for example here you have some magic. This is jetty.port. So this concept allows us not to have like copy pasting, and allows to build dynamic things. So jetty.port actually it's a parameter which is passed, for example, in Jenkins. It's a GUM parameter, and it's possible to use Groove expressions in all the attributes to make life more dynamic here. And another example is here. It's example of one test. Yeah, here it's a test. And here's shown like we define a variable, like a variable called class name, and let it be this value. And then I just show that in product it's possible to pass this variable into JavaScript. Then this tag JavaScript, it would run this JavaScript on your browser. And it's a concept when we define variables in XML, but then pass to another context, like JavaScript concept. Another example, when you are doing something in JavaScript, you're getting some results, and you're putting these results into some container. And then this container, after the tag ends, exposes its value through usual Groovy variables. It's just an example. And here it's even more complicated example. You don't be afraid. It just shows some magic in our XML. So here you see frames, and frame it's the same as in programming procedure or method. So the frame is a piece of something. Frame contains several XML lines. And here it's shown that every frame would have like ID, ref, and every frame could extend other frames and could change something. In this way, in XML we defined kind of OOP, so you could have reusable components, you could reuse them in other parts of your sources, but also it's possible to extend some logic in these components. And if to say more, frames actually could be put to imports, and frames then could be put to Nexus repositories as plugins. So you have Nexus, you have plugins of frames, and then you could use them through different projects of your company, whatever. So it's one part, these files. And another part, I will tell, is actually reporting itself. And I think this is more important for testers, it's more important for test management to access reporting and to see understandable and convenient information about tests, and it's a part of test management, actually. So I would highlight here that we have test cases area, and every test case could contain several tests, like one test case, several tests inside. And test cases and tests could have some statuses, they could have some tags, they could have name, a description, but a thing I like in this product is that every test case has a list of build artifacts which was produced during test execution. So you don't need to analyze some big log files, you don't need to, debug this on your computer. So if you have some mistake with your test, yeah, you have access in one page through all the artifacts. This could be log files, like separate log file exactly for this test. This could be screenshots, this could be snapshots when we take HTML of page, and then you could, on your local machine, download it and study what was the page, why you have these problems. You don't need to reproduce one more time on the server, you just download this page. And also, we support videos. So in our test, for example, here, it's possible to say, okay, here I would like to start video. It's done very easy. Video, start. Okay. Then you shouldn't put all the tags inside the video. It's just a closing tag. Okay. And then even if you didn't provide video stopped, it would stop automatically, and it would record what happened in your test. So then, when a test was running on a Jenkins, for you it's possible just to download this video file and to see what happens with your test. So I consider this is very, very powerful thing. Another thing is filter area. We have filtering through status of test, like error, success, and blah blah. We have also concept of tags. Every test could be marked with a tag, and then you could filtering through tags. For example, in our product we have M20, M29, M21, and actually it's milestones. So when we produce new tests for our software, we mark them with tag like with appropriate milestone tag, and then it's possible for manual testers or for product owner just to concentrate on tests you would like to concentrate. And another powerful thing is this folder structure. So I said that we have a set of XML files, and these XML files are put into folders. Folders organized just hierarchical, and we don't have any rules how you should organize folders. Like you as a product owner would create a folder called, okay, product 1. Then you go inside and create a folder just on your Windows or Linux. For example, payment. Another folder, login. Another folder is like user account. Inside these folders could be other folders, and inside them you put just your tests. And then, when software runs the tests, it would show you this folder exactly in the same way you organize it. And so that you have like separation. It's like in Java we have packaging separation. Here we have separation of tests based on some business tags. Tags could be here. Either you as test manager could organize them here. Okay. And another useful thing, I believe, it's web view. So in the business reports, you see that when you click the name of test case, a pop-up appears, and this pop-up will show you a source which was running. So, for example, when you go to your server to Jenkins and you're analyzing reports, you don't need to go to your local Eclipse. just check what's going on, what was the test, what happens. You're just getting the source in your report, and except that you even have highlighting, like what happens, which line failed. And except that you have also a message, what happens. If you click here on this icon, you would have full exception, full stack trace. You could study in a moderative way. And here you have a breadcrumb. Breadcrumb is kind of stack trace in Java. For example, okay,
it's okay.
Additional service. So, for example, you have a test, and this test imports another frame, and this frame imports another frame. In this way, you would have a set, like a list of a queue of imports, and then for you, it's important to understand what happens. And it could appear that something wrong not in your test. For example, something wrong with JavaScript or something wrong with web element. But something wrong could be with your, you see here, we have import, we import this resource with this namespace, and then we just invoke this frame. So it's not possible to understand what happens, then you should go inside. And this web view, when you click this icon, it will navigate you to the appropriate import, and it will show you breadcrumb where it happens. So for you, it's for creator of tests, it's possible to investigate what happens from business records. And another thing is, it's a funny thing, it's BDD, we call like business behavior-driven development tests. If you, in your tests, would use a tag called BDD, so you just put BDD and this attribute name, like BDD name, and you name it logically, then your test would be divided into groups, it will be transformed into tree. And this tree would represent for your test managers just logical structure for what your test does. For example, login to the page, enter names, check conditions, make a payment. So, and your test management, they don't need to understand, okay, which elements, which XPaths. They just are provided with some hierarchical information. And it's kind of stupid thing, but it's clever one. Like, you could even not read these things, you're just finding icons. For example, here you see that we have failed test. It's red square. Then, in order to find what happens, you should go to the latest icon, and this is why it happens. So you understand the logic, yeah? If everything is green, then test will be green. Latest square shows you what happens actually, and if something happens and you still have some other instructions, logical instructions, then it's gray. So that means that we were not able to process the stuff. Okay. So. Making a resume, I told you a little bit about XML format that we developed, and you now understand that this format, maybe it's, so we believe that it's easy, and it's much easier than development. And also I told you about reporting we use. And now I would like to return back to history, like which considerations we have when we were creating this stuff. Maybe show your hands. So, have you spent some time analyzing big log files? Like 5 megabytes, and you're going inside and you're... So, actually I would tell you that even if you not use this product, it's possible to customize Log4j if you use it, and Log4j would make a magic for you. So if you create another log file for your every test, then it's just more clever. And I said that we earn from test automation services, and not all of our customers would like to buy this. It's a pity for us. But even if they don't want to buy that, we usually propose, okay, you have this big log files, we lose our time, let's implement this log separation. And if customers say yes, we take some code approaches from our platform and apply to customer sources. Another movement is, for example, we are providing some services to customer, and we spend lots of time in order to implement some complex situations. For example, let it be dialogue handlings. Have you worked in Selenium with dialogues? Like you have a page, you click on a page, automatically some dialogues appeared, and so for example in this dialog would be a button, opening new tab, and you would say that it's not complicated, but it requires some knowledge. So it's not so easy just like by typing something in edit or creating a button. So if for that customer we implemented already something in Java, then for us it's very interesting to get this what we implemented and to put into some plugins in our platform. So it's second like double movement of knowledge, and that's why I like this product. So huge log files, we don't have them now, and it's now it's we don't return back to them. Have you seen such stuff? Like usually when we study WebDriver on Selenium, we see one single line. Okay, in order to like enter that, you should do that. But this example from real project, and method makes typing. So just type, and you see it has some try catch. Okay, it has some logging. It has some synchronizations. It has some support of clipboard typing, and it has support of mouse overing, and there is some send keys. So, is it easy? I mean, what do you think? So, what I would like to say is that in reality, when you try to create utils, and when you apply this util to different web UIs, like one is just classic one, another is very Ajax one, another is uses lots of mouse over events, and so on. Then your utils becomes bigger and bigger. And if you are just like a manual tester and you start doing some tests, or if you're a test automator, you should have enough experience to support such things. It's not so easy. And yeah, it's not so easy. Another thing, it's also some example from, it's not real work, but it's from some student work. One of my students did this. Do you see lots of settings like browser name, okay, set platform, set past WebDriver, capability, and also there is some remote mode, then you need to plug it. So it's, I believe that it's also not so easy. And if you, for example, your test would like to support 5 browsers and to support both modes, remote and local, then you also should study such things. Now we go into Java stuff. Like let's imagine we have tools at the beginning, and now we have object-oriented programming. We are getting experience. So here is just example of a test, like an abstract test, which uses Spring. Yeah, for and have you used Spring in Selenium in your projects? Okay, I would recommend that if you even don't go to our framework, then use Spring, and it would save lots of time. But you see, still you need to study some Java logic, like annotations, how to turn on Spring and blah blah blah. But then you could use Outerwire, for example, and you could in Spring you could define some beans, and they are provided to you for free by Spring Container. Okay, and the last example of Java sources, it's example of page context. So sometimes you need, for web UI testing, you need such things. For example, you're on one page, you're getting some value from this page, then you may click, go to another page, and then you need to use a value you taken from previous page. Do you understand, yeah? A case. You're taking something from one place and use it in another place. Then you need to store it in some way. So we say about page context. But it's simple operation, but in reality, it's also production code. And we have strict local, so it's not easy. Also, we have some generics, which are not so easy for like average test automator. So that's just examples. And I say that if we apply our technology, it solves all the problems. And actually for customers, what we say, okay, if we introduce this technology to you, then you don't pay money to experienced test automators. Just pay money to juniors, and they would still have good tests. So it's kind of marketing thing. Let's continue. Evolution. I just covered several approaches, like we considered utils, and we came into consideration that utils considered tricky things to support. We also considered object-oriented programming, for example, page object pattern, but also we defined that we need context, we need some reporting, we need some advanced logging, handling, and dynamic flows, and also sometimes in OP and page object patterns we have some workflows, and so it also becomes complicated. And that's why that was our motivation. Okay, let us try to solve these problems. In reality, that was in that way that we provided our services to customers, and we are getting more and more agile sources from that customer, from that customer, from that customer, from that customer, and we decided, okay, it's a good thing to have Java, but if you are able to put all this complicated stuff into plugins, and then to use these plugins in a simple way, and if we hide complexity from a user, from end user, then we have a win. And we decided to go into this direction. As we are naturally Java programmers, for us that was not so big task to create such system. And this system is actually pluginable. Everything is plugins, like reporting, all the text in XML, everything is plugins. It's very good for DDT, BDT, TDT. It's very reusable, and it supports context, hierarchical context, and also using variables are very simple there. Okay. So now it's end of part of advertising on some features, and now we talk in a more generic way about generalization. So can you raise your hands who considers it, who understands what is polymorphism? Okay. So that's very great, because when I'm making interviews candidates to my company, I almost usually ask, what's polymorphism to you? What do you consider by polymorphism? And for me, people who understand in a deep way polymorphism, they could create extendable systems. So they could create generic systems. They could create generic solutions. And if they could create generic things, it means that their sources, their code, it's more supportable and it's more production ready. So I would just, sorry if it's repeating of what you know, but I will just tell about polymorphism. It's very, very simple, but still, like imagine you have editor, graphical editor, and in this editor you have different features like squares, rounds, and triangles, yeah? And imagine that you need to repaint them. Like we have a button and they're repainted, right? And I'm, as a customer, I come to you and say, okay, I would like to add another feature, and let it be a star. So you apply polymorphism to this, to your software when you don't need to go to algorithm of painting, or to the algorithm which goes through all the objects and makes them painting, right? So I need just to implement an algorithm for painting this star, and it's a concept of polymorphism. So think about polymorphism as a list of different objects, and think about polymorphism as a loops which is applied to this list. And if you think this way, then you apply polymorphism in a good way. Because when you construct object-oriented programming OOP models in UML, for example, you're just constructing a model, right? You have classes, you have fields, you have methods. But another thing, you need to apply some logic to this model. And it matters how you apply this logic. If you apply it with if, have you seen such code, like 10 ifs? And in order to add something, you need another if, another if, another if. If you understand polymorphism, you never write code in such a way. You always apply some loops, some generic stuff. And I will tell you that in my understanding, plugins is when you apply polymorphism plus reflection. So now we have reflection almost everywhere, and that means almost all the projects could be made in a pluginable way, because plugins is just interfaces, but they're dynamically loaded into the system. And plugins is a concept of polymorphism. But it's just a warning. When you think about generalization, when you think about object-oriented programming and patterns, never forget simple block schemes. Who uses block schemes? Just show me. Do you see block schemes when you create some logic, some feature? Who uses? Raise your hands. Okay, but and who had problems, for example, in algorithms? Like you think about some algorithm, you created it, and then you have logical problem, you change something in algorithm. Do you have some situations? Okay, so I would recommend you, when you create some object-oriented programming stuff or complicated logic, apply what you created to simple block schemes. Don't afraid to create logic in a simple objects. And for my students, I always ask, as a project manager, if you're a project manager or if you're running some teams, it's very expensive to you to say, okay, let's sit together, show me my algorithm, what you created, and if algorithm is 20 lines, and that's okay, but if it's 200 lines, it's very complicated. No, just say, create a block scheme to me. It's a paper, create it, and then you talk back. If person returns back and you just, if you're experienced in that, if you have enough knowledge, then you say, okay, it doesn't work. Because you in mind could run through this block scheme with some stuff. And it's very, very easy thing. So I would recommend to use block schemes everywhere. So now, next thing I would like to cover are contexts. So context is kind of a pattern, and it could be applied, especially in test automation. It could be applied, especially in test automation. So several things, several notes about context. So context is very simple. When you have something and you could read something to it, and you could get something to it. But in general, we applied context in XML2Selenium and in another way, and it's shown that it's a powerful approach. For example, you could have rights to write and read. Something could read to context and something couldn't. Also, some things like context consumers, it could be like page objects, like login page could provide to context information about login, yeah? But login page can provide some other information. The same is about another page, so it could read something, but it could read another information. Also, yeah, this is what could and should be stored in the context. Also, context is a good way to expose an API. Like if you have in a context some global object, which is actually a core of what you're doing, and your plugin or your component has rights to access the context, then it's possible to invoke methods of these objects. So it's also a good thing. And context could be inside another. For example, in programming you have a class, in a class you have variables, then you have methods, in methods you have variables, and so on. So you have a tree of context with own visibility rights. Okay, context could have interceptors, like if you put something to context, some guy or some component could be notified by listeners. And context even could have rich nature, like you're putting something to context and something happens. So context behaves not just as storage, but have some rich methods, like business methods, which could be involved. Okay, and another thing is workflows and some rules for working with context. I said that like one component would like to have in a context certain variable. And if you have a queue of components, and we are running this component, so he has some configuration I would like to have in the context that, and we are able to automatically check either context contains this information. If it contains, we allow to go further. If not, we don't allow. Yeah, and here I've shown just context in XML2Selenium. For example, we have web element. It represents just something on HTML, and we say, okay, we reading some text from a component called login link, and we put this value into variable called saved page. Yeah, and then later we are able to use these variables in our Groovy expressions. So it's about plugin development, and I will just very quickly go through that. So in our system we applied plugins in an Eclipse-based way. So we haven't used Eclipse configuration, that was too complicated for us, but it's something similar to us. And we use reflection OOP. Every plugin has configuration, and every plugin has extension, not plugin, but every extendable part in a product have extension points. When you're making the plugins, you need to think how to allow your plugins to change something in your core. And for that, you need to introduce some methods, some interfaces which could be invoked. And rting, in general, it's here. I need 4 bases, then I'm happy. So if you have good architecture, then it's like about this block scheme. You're just trying to imagine several situations, like Z. You're writing down the situation in a simple, like Russian or English, without any programming. And then you get every situation and apply it to your plugins. If your plugins don't allow to do this, it means that it's not basis. The system doesn't have a basis. If your system has a basis, you could implement everything with your plugins. Okay, that's a funny thing. It's
mind map.
It's kind of mind map. It's from what we began. So that was just a brainstorm, put everything on the page, and then started development in iteration. So we apply in development of this product. We apply Scrum, Agile, and we create tests. We are working in iterations, and let me show this to you. For example, you see that it's screenshots of our Jenkins builds, and you see that yesterday that was 555th build of this software. So it's kind of like holiday for us. Imagine 555 builds, and if you calculate all the tests like 600s, so it's kind of 1,000 and maybe 200 tests already for 1 year of development. So, and you see that master build is always stable, it's a very good thing, but some builds are not stable. This also should be stable. And this build is small test build. We use it to create different combinations of tests just to see how a report behaves with fails, with errors, and so on. Okay. Here, in other notes, I would like to share this JUnit. So when your test automators, don't afraid to use JUnit. It's rather easy to extend it. In JUnit, you have annotation run with, and you could create your own runner. And if you create your own runners, then you could create your own annotations for tests. If you have your own annotations for tests in your runner, you could add some additional logic, and you could customize the unit to handle what you need. Actually, we have integration with JUnit, with Jenkins, with Eclipse, with IDE, with all Java IDE. And you see that when you're running our test, it doesn't show you packages, it doesn't show you class names. It shows you information which is taken from description of your XML, from your XML. So you're creating XML, you type a name or description, and you're provided with human readable information what happens there. Okay. So, and here I'm finishing, and I would like to share some other ideas with you. If your Java test automator, use Maven and Nexus. So actually, Maven it's dependency management in Java, and Nexus it's a repository, and your plugins or your pieces of software could be hosted in this Nexus. And so Nexus you could share what you have with different teams, with different companies. And if you in your software use Maven and Nexus, then for free you're getting lots of things like dependency management, and even for our customers we use Nexus. So we just provide another credentials, another account for customers, and they're just getting what they pay for from through Maven from our Nexus. Go for early adoption. So when we started to do that, we found partners who was interested in applying our principles in their work. So they didn't pay money for us, but our developers, they didn't know about that. So like in January or February, I came to my team, to my colleagues, and said, okay guys, we have a customer, they pay to us. It's very, very serious customers. And then we also, so programmers then started to behave more responsible, because they know, okay, someone uses what they're doing. And in other advice apply processes with hundreds of seriously. Like we had product owner, we had backlogs, we had iterations, demos, Scrum board, and manual testers. So we created test automation software, but we also had manual testers who help us with stability. And also, we are thinking about open source now. It's proprietary software, but maybe in some time we decide to go to open source and release a core plus basic plugins, and then to earn money from creating new plugins for some companies. Okay. Yeah, here are several roles we use. So now we have in software we have developers who are really responsible for engine, for a core part. And then we have plugin developers, it's other guys. Then we have test developers who use the product to create new tests. And we use also consultants, as guys who could explain to customer what it is, how to use, and what's the best practices behind it. And through that, yeah, it's possible to separate roles. Yeah, so most experienced developers concentrate here, then average here, and for testers we could apply even juniors. So it just works in that way. And I'm finishing with plans for the future. We would like to go to cloud and to create some services, software wrapping for the software. Also, we would like to propagate this cloud-based. You could take a look. It's a cloud continuous integration service, and it became popular last days. Also, we would like to create Eclipse-based studio. So we don't want people type on XML. We would like people go to some editor, to plug-in editor, click, and everything, the XML and everything is done automatically. So, but for that, it's not for now, but in the plan. And also, we would like to create a web-based debug mode. Like when you go to WebView in business reports, you see the sources of what happens. And in the case you have a problem, you could go line by line and to see what was in the context, which variables were taken, what was the state of your page. And through that, it's possible for quality assurance, like test automator, to analyze the problems without reproduction. So you could just analyze everything in logs and all you need. Okay, and I'm finishing this presentation with a good news for us, for me. Today I confirmed that we had new customer in Netherlands. So maybe questions.
Yeah, we have some time for just little bit of time for a few questions, fast questions.
Do you have a bundle of your system similar to a bundle for Android developers?
Do you mean these plugins for Android?
No, I mean a bundle which I download and start developing immediately.
Oh, okay. So actually, yeah, we have a project on GitHub. This project already contains Maven dependencies required to develop. And if you are our customer, you're just provided with access to Nexus, and you need just to like register your Nexus repository, and then you could create a test immediately.
So the system is paid. I have to pay to use it.
Yeah, it's proprietary system, and so actually, historically, I said that we are, for example, not every customer would like to switch to the system, and usually we start working with just Selenium and WebDriver, and we apply good OOP to the systems. But then, when we have a trust, we propose, okay, we have a solution, and the solution has good reports. Let's try to apply, and this is usual way to apply this for new customers. But yeah, if you don't go to open source, you need to pay. But from another point of view, we have open public Jenkins, and for you it's possible for free to create a test, to commit it to our repo, public repo, and to see how it behaves. So you could experiment. You have access to everything, and now we are working on web-based like platform. You're going inside a page. From one on the right side you see a page you would like to test, and on the left side you have kind of editor. And on the right side you have some hints. Click here, click here, click here, click here. And when you're clicking, on the left side you have this XML2Selenium instructions appeared. And then when you finish with the hints, you click a button. It sends instructions to a server and gets some
kind of code generator.
Sorry?
Kind of code generator, yeah? You're talking about this?
XML2Selenium engine, it make interpretation of these instructions transform them into Selenium WebDriver calls, and then invoke them. So it's kind of a wrapping on Selenium actually. But I would highlight that this wrapping is not based on Selenium. So Selenium supports only one of plugins. So you could take Selenium off and plug another technology. For example, for Android. So it's possible to use for Android and for everything, for all kind of automation. That's why it's called platform, because it's not dependent on a vendor behind the platform. Yeah, any questions?
Unfortunately, we have to finish because we are really out of time, and we have a big break till 16:30.
Okay. Thank you very much.